Okay, it is 7 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. We'll call the Johnston City Council meeting number 24-21 to order. Cindy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Cope.
Nicole.
Cope here.
Evans.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Burkhart.
Here.
Ready.
Here.
I want to welcome everyone that is in the audience this evening. If you are here for an item that is on the agenda, we would ask for you to wait for that item to come up and address the council at that time. If you're here for an item that is not on the agenda, there will be an opportunity under public communications to address the council. The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. And what we like to do is if there's ever any young people in the audience, we like to invite them up to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I see a couple of young people in the audience this evening, so can I ask you to come up and...
In a big way.
Can we ask you to lead it from where you're at?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the agenda approval. Mike, do we have any changes to the agenda?
No agenda amendments this evening. Thank you.
Okay, council, any changes? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second discussion. Nicole, vote please.
Councilmember Evans.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Burkhart.
Yes.
Ready.
Yes.
Cope.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to public communications. We have a couple of scheduled public communications this evening. We're going to go in the opposite of order of what we have them listed, and we're going to do first the acknowledging Denny Messenger for receiving the 2024 Harris Seidel Meritorious Operator Award. Matt?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Tonight, I'd like to introduce Denny Messenger. Denny has been with the city for 15 years. He started with the Parks Department back in 2009 and then moved over to our Water Department in the fall of 2010. He's been a valued member of our team throughout his time here. Denny's worked in different capacities within the department. A couple of those to mention are the city's Aclara water meter programming and installation. He also was the first person in the water department to lead the asset management program and the work order system. In 2023, Denny moved into the department's crew lead position and has been integral in moving the operations side of the water department forward. Denny was recently recognized by the Iowa American Water Works Association for his hard work and dedication in the water industry by being selected for the 2024 Harris Seidel Meritorious Operators Award. The recipient of the award is recognized for their special performance and acts related to the water industry beyond normal operating responsibilities and consistent and outstanding contribution to operation and maintenance of distribution lines, pump stations, and reservoirs. In Denny's spare time, he does like to ride his motorcycle. He also loves to garden and spend time with his family. I would like to take this time to thank Denny for all of his efforts in the department and congratulate him for a job well done. Come on. Denny did receive the Harris Seidel Award at the fall conference here a couple of weeks ago, there towards the end of October. So just want to congratulate him on a job well done.
And Denny, I know it's more than presented to you once. I'm going to present it to you again. It's a beautiful award. Look at this. Isn't that gorgeous? I'm assuming it's a water drop. A drop of water. It is absolutely one. And Denny, I just want to thank you for the great work that you do for me. 15 years. Does it seem like it's been 15 years? Okay. It's been a good 15 years. Good. Well, we take water for granted. We take quality water for granted. And, we're fortunate that every time we go to our faucet and turn on the tap, good, clean, good quality water comes out of the tap. But, we have had drought spot like we've had the last couple of years. We know that it's not a guarantee. That there'll always be water there, sufficient water there for us. And so we do appreciate everything you do to make sure that we have good quality water coming out of our taps here in Johnston. And I know that I say that on behalf of all of our residents. So thank you very much. Thank you. Beautiful water here. This is real. Oops. Yeah, there we go. Again, congratulations. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I just want to say that I don't do this alone. I have a good team behind me. I've got good people I work with. It's a great time. And I love working with you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. We also have another public communication this evening, and that is acknowledgement of the Cork 501(c)(3)1's efforts in organizing the 2024 Summer Concert Series. Josh?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have 4 guests with us this evening from the Cork, Leif and Tricia, and Cole and Kai. All 4 have invested their summer here. Please come on up, guys, into creating a number of incredible experiences for the residents here in Johnston through the Summer Concert Series, and also visitors who may not be Johnston residents. So, Mayor, I know you have some statistics. I'll save those for you from this summer, but they've done an incredible job, and I think they've made our job really easy here at the city in really taking over the concert series. This is their 2nd year, so I will turn this over to you and the 4 stars of Summer Concert Series.
Thank you.
Well, being on stage is something that's pretty familiar.
I know, right? The first time I think my hands were shaking like this, couldn't remember anything.
So I'm really pleased to be able to have this opportunity this evening to say thank you. Thank you to Leif, thank you to Tricia, which one's Kai?
Kai, this is Kai.
Kai, and Cole. Because you were part of the team too, right? I mean, you were out there working.
Oh, yeah.
And, running stuff back and forth and making sure that your mom was doing what she was supposed to be doing on stage, and your dad was behind the concession stand, pushing those bags of potato chips. What an amazing season this year. And this was the 2nd season of the Summer Concert Series. First one, I think, was it Twilight? I think that's what we called it.
Yeah.
But just incredible shows. I was at every one of them, and the performances were just absolutely outstanding. I mean, they were just top notch. I mean, you could travel other places in the United States, pay much higher prices,
Yes.
but not get the kind of experience that we had here in Johnston. So, so much of the credit goes to all of you, for finding that wonderful talent, bringing them here, putting on, making it a full experience for our residents and our so it was just absolutely amazing. One of the figures that Josh provided to me was the number of people that we estimate turned out for the concert this summer, and we're estimating about 7,000. That might be the right number. It's hard to tell. Of course, Josh stands on the roof and he takes pictures, so he's up there counting. Don't worry. But it was at least 7,000. And we saw the number of people at each one of the concerts, you know, the numbers increase at each one of them. And what that shows is that the people that came to concerts were having great experiences. They were telling their friends and neighbors, you need to check this out as well. It just you know, continued to snowball. And so I'm hoping that we're gonna have another season next year. We have 4 concerts so far. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. You know, it's, you know, I'm just so proud of you know, what this town center is becoming. I mean, it's, you know, we're really fulfilling the vision that we had, you know, many years ago. When we said that we wanted to create this town center here, create a downtown that we've never had, and make a space in our community where our residents could gather and you know enjoy each other's company and you know have the kind of experiences that we've been able to provide to them now. And you've helped us realize that dream, that vision that we had. So again, just want to thank you so much for everything. Absolutely.
Thank you. It's your vision.
Mayor, the last band we had, the Pork Tornadoes, left a drumhead cover that says the Pork Tornadoes love Johnston, and it's signed by all 4 members. So
They are coming back next summer. So.
yeah.
Well, one of them lives in Johnston
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
When they came to perform, one of them said that he had just closed on a house here in Johnston. So I suggested, since he told me that they don't have an opportunity to rehearse very often because they live in different communities in Iowa, I said, anytime you want to use the stage, feel free.
There you go. I love it. Love that.
Yeah, let's
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
I'm not sure I can stand next to Kai. He'll be upstage.
I don't know if you want to stand next time. He's a little squirrely.
I'm just thinking he's gonna upstage us.
Council, perfect. Thank you. And council, this evening, when you're in your consent agenda, we're considering additional agreements with the court this council evening that'll maybe be in place for this winter. So because of the great partnership, there's a possibility after this evening, we'll be working with them more, so. All right.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Fred. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
Everybody in favor. Thanks, Jim.
Show these.
Thank you for coming.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
Don't like those.
Okay, we are still under public communications. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? Cindy, anyone online? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to public hearings. We have one public hearing this evening, and that is to conduct a public hearing and consider resolution number 24-273, approving and authorizing the mayor of the city of Johnston to sign an annexation moratorium agreement with Granger, Iowa. And we will open this public hearing at 7:15. David?
Good evening. Over the last several months, the city has been negotiating with the city of Granger on some annexation moratorium boundaries. This kind of came out of a conversation that started in 2023 when the city of Granger was considering some annexation of territory, and we started the dialogue about shared boundaries, areas of which each city could serve, those kind of conversations. The agreement that is before you tonight is one that has been negotiated, as I said, over a number of months, and believe all parties are on the same page. The agreement essentially sets aside 4 areas, area A, B, C, and D, and those are depicted on the map that are in the packet. Area A would be sort of the exclusive ability for Granger to annex for a 10-year period. Areas B and D would also, or excuse me, would be on the Johnston side of the line for a 10-year period. And then Area C is an area that would only be, neither city would be allowed to annex into that area for a 4-year period, at which time we'd either reconsider the agreement or either city would have the ability to annex into that area. And that's, Area C was really the area in which we had the most contention as we had conversations with Granger in the area in which we have the ability to serve, they believe they have the ability to serve. And so this gives us some time to get through further planning, and we can reconsider Area C in the next 4 years or so before that would expire. That's a pretty brief overview of a lot of meetings that happened over the last several months. So I'd be happy to stop there and answer any questions that the council may have.
David, do we know when Granger will be acting on this?
I don't have an official date. I believe it'll be probably in December. They only meet once a month is my understanding. So
Okay.
I think they were a little bit behind us in getting, there's notices that have to happen in both Polk County and Dallas County because of the boundaries of each city. And then with publication deadlines, there's a little bit of a lag there in getting those published. So
And after both cities approve the agreement,
this,
then what happens?
It would get sent to the City Development Board. It's really more for their information. So they don't take any action on it, but it gets sent to the City Development Board and filed and becomes a matter of record at that point. So the City Development Board could not approve any annexation that's counter to the conditions that are within the agreement. The one thing I did overlook or didn't mention as I went through my comments, the one thing this also does is it requires either city to notify the other if there's any development within 660 feet. Road improvements, rezoning, site plans, plats, those type of things. And so there's that sort of required communication aspect that would be part of this agreement anytime either one of us encroach upon that boundary line.
Council, any other questions? Seeing none. Well, I want to thank all of the staff that have been involved in these conversations with Granger through this period of time. It hasn't always been easy. Mike, Dave, Clayton, others have contributed a lot to make sure that we worked through the process and came up with an agreement that we found acceptable and that Granger found acceptable. And I think it's in everybody's best interest that we reached an agreement and then can move forward with the development that we are planning in some of those areas, but then have some time to figure out how to work through the areas where there has been disagreement. So I think this was a very good result and one that took a lot of hard work. And so just wanted to express that appreciation. This is a public hearing on this item. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council? If not, we will close the public hearing at 7:18. Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 24-273?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Nicole, vote please.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Cope,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Nicole, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Cope,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to the non-consent agenda. Item 7A, consider approval of the third and final reading and to adopt and publish ordinance 1125, an ordinance amending the Birchwood Crossing Plan Unit Development Zoning District, PZ case 2424.
There have been no changes nor public comments since second reading.
Council, have any questions for Clayton? If not, do we have a motion to approve ordinance number 1125?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Nicole, vote please.
Councilmember Reddy,
Yes.
Cope,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7B, consider approval of resolution number 24-260, the site plan for Eternity Church site plan at 5233 Stony Creek Court, PZ case 2425. Clayton.
Good evening again. Eternity Church has submitted a site plan that would do some exterior modifications to the site of their new home here in Johnston, as well as architectural changes. Non-architectural changes would be replacement of some paving throughout the site. And so just kind of a like-for-like replacement of some of those paving throughout kind of this darker gray. And then probably the more significant change is on the southern edge of the existing building. There'd be some modification to the parking to allow for what is being termed an outdoor baptism. I can't say it.
Baptismal?
Thank you. I can't say that word. So that would be the primary change along the southern end. And we also will have architectural changes as well. Assuming it opens for us, I can have this pulled up for you. While those are pulling up, one item I do want to point out is because this is a change of use, the parking calculations would change from the previous theater usage, and the total parking spaces would be 743 required. The site presently has 656 spaces required, and this is assuming a complete modification of the interior of the building, when in reality they're only doing about a 50% renovation at this time. So your resolution does include a condition to modify the parking requirements to allow for acceptance of the existing count in lieu of the higher number. Main difference that happened there is when we adopted our 2023 zoning code, we now calculate parking based on fire code occupancy, and previously it was based on square footage.
Clayton, I'd like to ask a question regarding the parking, if it's appropriate.
Certainly go ahead, because this architecture's taking a while to load.
Okay. In the site plan, it looks like there are 14 handicap parking stalls. And I thought that was kind of an interesting number. Is that based on what was required when the site was originally developed, or is that our current standard for this size of parking lot?
That would have been what was required at that time, which would have been 2%, I believe it was. What did I say, 646? Yeah, old code would have required actually 13 spaces.
And the new code only requires 12?
The new code just references back to ADA.
So I guess,
That's really the same.
and regardless of what our city ordinances are, and I'm just asking this question for knowledge, regardless of what our city ordinances are and whether or not the use of this building has changed, do not parking standards need to be updated? Handicap parking standards need to be followed and updated. I mean, I would consider the Americans with Disability Act to rule in this case. I know that the question has come up before, that we go back to the ordinances at the time it was developed, but in this case, I'm sort of interested because you referenced fire standards and occupancy, and that is a difference from a theater to a church or not. I'm just trying to say, what standard are we going by? A development standard that's 10 years old, or current standards for handicap parking?
Yeah, so I believe our code would say whatever the current standard
Okay,
is,
okay.
because it references back to whatever ADA compliance is.
So we're going to assume that their people have looked at this and they are putting in the number of stalls they need.
To my knowledge, it's still in compliance with ADA.
Okay. Second question had to do with curb cuts. There's only 2 curb cuts across the front of the building. And I was confused on where all the actual public entrances are. Because I heard at one time discussion of a childcare center. Do you know where the entrances all are for this building? Not fire exits, but all public entrances.
They are shown on the architecture, and I do apologize they weren't. There we go. Apologize, I do not know why this is not like in the architecture renderings right now. Coming over to the site plan. They would have their entrances along the west edge of the building, along this southwest corner. And then I know I'd seen plans, and maybe I'm gonna look over to that. Are you still having the entrance off the south end over here, or is that future?
Yeah, this will be accessible.
That's accessible from day one? Yeah. And then I couldn't recall, did you have any off the north? I didn't think you had any off the north.
Just the existing door. I'm still using
So is that intended to be a public or more of just a fire access?
public egress. It's not an entry door.
Yeah, so primary entrance is west and then off this south. There is an access up the north, but that'd just be primarily for egress, not entrance.
Okay.
And then there is fire access off the east as well.
So there's a curb cut on the south to this entry door?
Well, there wouldn't be a curb cut down to the parking lot because that's not leading to any ADA parking spaces.
I see.
The curb cut is for the ADA compliant path from the parking spaces to the building.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're potentially directing people out into areas that are non-ADA compliant.
Sometimes you want to put a curb cut anyway because you have rolling carts or other things that need to be moved in and out, but I understand if that's not required. Thank you.
Mhm. Thanks.
Any other questions for Clayton?
I'll just state the architecture is similar to what you've previously seen with the rezoning application. The only modification was removal of the sign/steeple pending an anticipated appeal by the applicant to go to Board of Adjustment. But that has been removed from the renderings to make clear that is not part of this approval. This has been to Planning and Zoning Commission. They have recommended approval. And we certainly do have representatives of the applicant, should there be any questions there.
Does the council have any questions for Clayton or the applicants?
Clayton, I just want some clarification. I had incredible struggles trying to bring up these very large documents. In fact, I'm waiting with bated breath to be able to see one of these, and I think that's kind of a disservice, quite frankly. But the comment that was made about the outdoor baptismal, is that baptismal accessible from outside, or is it only accessible through interior?
That'd be exterior accessible.
Okay. Is it elevated or raised in any way, or is it flush with the ground? In other words, do we have any concerns with folks being able to, or little kids being able to walk up to it?
As I understand it, it's flush with the ground. It would certainly need to comply with any pool regulations with the city. So there would be adequate protections in place when not in use.
Okay.
No different than if someone had a pool.
Is that depicted somewhere in there, or can you refresh my memory as to what those precautions would need to be?
Is we're talking to
Yeah, Nikki Neal, Civil Design Advantage, 4121 Northwest Urbandale Drive. So currently that is actually for future baptismal space. So for the time being, I would consider it more of like a plaza or a gathering space. So it's strictly sidewalk at this point.
Okay,
Yep. And then in the future, yes, there would be plans to have to, basically would dive down for a pool.
Okay.
But we would have to meet those regulations at that point when that proceeds forward.
thanks for clarifying that.
Any other questions, council?
Cindy finally got the architecture renderings to work for us. Thank you, Cindy. No, that's perfectly fine. I just wanted to pull them up for reference for you.
Is it possible to see can you zoom in on the east elevation at all? That, specifically the door or entryway?
The backside?
Yeah.
Up, Cindy.
That's,
Particular one of those.
that, there's, is that a overhead door? Is that what kind of, is that a man door? What is that?
That is an overhead door. That's up at the stage height. They're trying to put it on the stage.
And that currently, is that overhead door currently in place, or you'd be adding that?
It is an addition.
So it's my understanding that any additions, though, any of that surface would then need to be in compliance. And I remember one of our previous conversations, there weren't going to do changes to that east side. Is my recollection incorrect?
You are correct. That's what I said. I guess I did not catch that, so I apologize for that. But that certainly would be bringing the site, it wouldn't be lessening the non-compliance.
No, but we also had a discussion that any sides, and we were neglecting the east side from bringing it up to compliance because they weren't going to touch that side. And what this plan indicates is they're not only touching it, they're adding another entrance or exit, and therefore they now need to bring that entire east face up to compliance.
I don't believe that's how I would interpret that. I mean, certainly we can have a different opinion, but I don't see how adding a overhead door would mean they have to bring an entire facade into compliance with and completely change the materials on that facade.
Clayton, that's counter to what you had said at a previous meeting. We can discuss this later.
Any other questions, council? If not, do we have a motion to approve resolution number 24-260?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Yes, Mayor. I will be voting against this largely because of the condition that I had already heard and understood. Because of that fact, I don't see how I could support this.
Any other further discussion?
Mayor, I'm trying to understand the issue that Councilman Burkhart has brought up. I can kind of recollect, you know that my thing is usually landscape, so I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to the facade question, but it had to do with the material being used, correct?
That is correct.
And if we're making a change, and in this case, adding an overhead door that wasn't there before, then that opens up that whole side or the whole building to some sort of interpretation on whether it's up to our current standards.
It was my understanding that we were only going to consider raising the architectural standards on the sides that were going to be modified. And I also was under the understanding that there were going to be no modifications made to that east side. And this is counter to that.
And the next question then would be, how would, if this is the case, that they are modifying that side, and that is something that would open the door to talking about the whole east side, what would be the difference in our current ordinances and requirements now? What would be the impact to that building side? What could be the impact to the material on that backside?
If I can. So I'm going to open up the ordinance which was approved on your previous action item. This B here is what would be applicable. Any exterior modifications to the existing building shall result in the architecture being in greater compliance with Chapter 185 of the zoning code. In no circumstance shall this be interpreted to mean that the percentage of materials may be increased above the maximum allowance as allowed by Chapter 185. I don't see how that's reducing the compliance.
Didn't you just read it must be in compliance, in greater compliance?
So I guess my question is, what precisely are you wanting them to do?
Improve that side.
How?
With the standard of materials. Is an overhead door a greater standard of materials?
It'd be the same class of materials as what's presently on the facade.
Which is not an improvement, is it?
No, but Clayton, are you saying that regardless what they have across the back would be in compliance, whether it was built in 2012 or built today? The materials, the siding, the exterior, whether it's brick or concrete or masonry units, whatever they have now would still meet current compliance?
Right now, that east facade is 79% Class B, 21% Class C. By taking out some brick that's painted and replacing it with a door, that's replacing a Class C with a Class C. So
there is no change, is what you're trying to tell us?
yeah.
Okay.
But it is not more in compliance.
It's just the same in compliance in terms of the facade.
It is still out of compliance. Because we can't have greater than, was it 49% of Class B materials or something along those lines?
No more than 79% Class B.
But that isn't in compliance.
So I think, a PUD modifies the existing zoning regulations for the site. So the language that Clayton has pulled up here is basically what's permitted through the PUD ordinance. Section A talks about minimums for materials on each face of the building. Section B then says if they do make modifications to any face of the building, it does say it shall be in greater compliance, cannot be in lesser compliance. So I think staff's interpretation is that it's equal compliance. Is that your assessment?
Yeah, I would argue it's equal compliance. Yes, it's not using the term greater. I guess we can stand up here and debate what greater means and how they achieve that.
I'm going to be very clear. I think we know what greater means. A higher number than what is currently stated.
Or how they achieve that short of ripping off a bunch of materials. Is that what you want?
Which is what we want, is a higher architectural standard. That's why we agreed upon that language. Otherwise, there's no incentive for them to ever make an improvement.
It says greater compliance. Any changes to a facade shall result in greater compliance. Which I would say would be not less than compliance. Is equal greater? I don't know. staff believes equal is acceptable.
I have a question, Councilman Burkhart. If this door, we're imagining the backside of a building, it's a door to move equipment in and out, but what if that door were there are some very nice garage
sure.
doors out there. And perhaps it's an improvement in my sense, a garage door that maybe had some translucent panels, maybe some higher quality framing panels, maybe wood I don't know. I'm not an architect, I'm sorry. But if maybe the compromise could be a higher level of door than just one of those roll-up shed doors. Maybe getting a little light in that area would make the backside of this interior space nice, especially for if you lose electricity and you have need people to exit, et cetera. If there's some natural light, they can get out the doors. Do you know what I'm saying? So perhaps would the owner consider just telling us that the door that you will install will be a quality door with some higher grade finish than just what you would normally see in a warehouse backside? Would you consider that?
Yes, we've got a quality door and transparency because it is the back of the sanctuary space, natural light actually space.
You need it dark.
Yes.
Okay. Because it's the backside of a stage kind of area, correct? Could the outside just be maybe a slightly higher quality, maybe something that looks like wood or, just make it look a little bit different than just an aluminum roll-up door? Would you consider that?
Current design consensus for that door to
I see.
not drawing attention to it.
Mm-hmm. I tried.
I know you did, and I appreciate that. I think we have to follow the description as it is. And my interpretation of what I had just agreed to was greater compliance, not greater than or equal to, and certainly not less than. So I will be voting no.
We do have a motion and a second. We're in discussion right now. Is there any further discussion? If not, Nicole, vote please.
Cope,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
No.
Burkhart,
No.
Ready,
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to item 7C. Consider second reading of ordinance number 1124, amending the Johnston revised ordinances of 2007 by amending section 69.08 to modify parking on Northwest 92nd Court.
There have been no comments or changes to the ordinance since the first reading.
Council, any questions? If not, do we have a motion to approve second reading of ordinance number 1124?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Nicole, vote please.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Cope,
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7D, consider approval of resolution number 24-263, a resolution approving the preliminary plat for Ridgedale Heights duplexes. The subject property is located south of Northwest 70th Avenue and west of Northwest 106th Street, PZ case 24-28.
Again, Transition Properties has submitted a preliminary plat for development of 10.141 acres into twin home development. Property is located just north of the Johnston High School and west of 106th Street in the Ridgedale Heights development. Got it outlined in this red dash on the screen. Brief history, property was rezoned back in 2019 and has presently been used as an agricultural farm field until now, and has been part of an outlot that had been reserved for this future development since that time. It is on the Thrive 2040 comprehensive plan as medium density residential, generally 6 to 10 units per acre. Properties presently zoned R3, medium density mixed residential zoning district. Twin homes is an allowed use subject to meeting some certain design conditions. Essentially, you can't have the same facade facing one after another. You have to have some variation in facades. We don't prescribe the specific materials that must be utilized, but there must just be some type of variation to distinguish facades. Property would have a single public street running north-south to be named Mongoose Court in completion of Grenville Drive going east-west. This would tie into Southeast 3rd, I believe is what it is, in Grimes. And the section within Grimes is constructed up to the city limits, so that would complete the connection over to the Walmart site. Nice little cut through for people if they want it. Grenville will be a 31-foot roadway and a 60-foot right-of-way. Mongoose Court would be a 29-foot roadway with 60-foot right-of-way. There would be a mid-block traffic calming, narrowing in that crossing for a mid-block pedestrian crossing. This is a practice that we've even implemented Northwest 55th Avenue, Northwest 57th Avenue on our East Emerald Hay Road projects. This project would terminate in a temporary dead end. The version you have in front of you has a alternative hammerhead. There is a condition that this be modified to a cul-de-sac design to allow for more efficient snowplow, emergency vehicle turning, et cetera, larger vehicles. The anticipation this road would connect further into 106th Street. School district owns just to the south. Staff has been in discussion with school district staff, and while no action has been taken by this school board to date, there is an existing development agreement with the school district that they'd be required to complete 106th Street from kind of the backside of the football stadium presently up to the Ridgedale Heights development. That would actually occur with Ridgedale Heights Plat 5, which is just to the east over here. And as part of that, a continuation of the road that would leave this sort of remnant about 4.5 acres or so on the west side of that road. And at least staff leadership has said they would recommend the board parcel that off, make it available for development purposes to help recoup some of those costs of extending the roadway extensions were triggered at, they have to have it completed within 5 years of 106th Street being at their property line. So we're anticipating that plat will be in front of you this coming spring. So that would put them to completing that by approximately spring 2030. I mentioned the mid-block crossing here that would also tie in with a mid-block pedestrian connection between Mongoose Court back to 106th Street. This is a 10-foot wide trail, and there would also be future trail connection back to the west to Grimes. In Grimes, there will be a north-south trail running along this property line. And part of it is already constructed down to south where the apartments in Grimes presently are, just down over here. We have consulted with the Grimes staff, and they have requested that that trail not actually get installed at this time because they don't know the final grades on that farm parcel to the west. So they would like for that to get installed at a later date. So we would recommend a development agreement prior to a final plat that establishes developer or there's heir or successor to install that. So it doesn't become a city expense. It is still a development requirement. We just established kind of a deferral. There would also be a future mid-block crossing and mid-block pedestrian connection on the south end, going from the trail back over to 106th Street. They're showing that they would provide half of it, and then with the development of that remnant school parcel, the other half would be provided as well. The actual mid-block crossing would be established when that roadway gets extended. There is a number of buffers that will be required on this site. On the west property line, there's a 30-foot buffer adjacent to the apartments, a 50-foot buffer adjacent to the farm field that is zoned and is shown in the Grimes comprehensive plan as commercial. Because that is the city limits and we can't impose our requirements on adjacent properties, that full requirement is placed upon this development rather than split. And then there would also be buffer requirements along the side lot trails here, and then there'd be, whenever this gets designed, they would, on the south end, they would design out the buffering there. They have provided buffer easement though, so it would at least reserve the space for proper plantings. Site would have adequate access to sanitary sewer, water, storm sewer. Drainage for the site really kind of goes in 3 directions. This northern portion goes into the existing wet pond that's on the southwest corner of 100th and 70th, just south of Mel Bauman's barn that he's renovating. This southeastern portion will drain east through Plat 5 into the basin that is in the Ridgedale Heights Park, and that will capture the rear yards of these lots. And then this kind of southern, southwestern portion here would drain west, and this section actually goes into the Walnut Creek watershed. Everything else goes Beaver Creek. This approval does include a condition that any off-site improvements, such as the storm sewer here, is subject to agreement of that property owner. And if Grimes is to require any permittings within their city limits, they'd be subject to that as well. If for some reason they are unable to get that approval from Grimes and or that property owner, they would need to modify their plans to bring everything onto their site and make any adjustments as otherwise needed. Site has previously dedicated parkland with the Ridgedale Heights Park dedication. No additional parkland would be required. They would be payable for the sanitary sewer connection district and water connection district fees prior to final plat. Final item I want to touch on, subdivision regulations state that temporary dead ends are not to exceed 500 average daily trips. For the purposes of determining average daily trips, we assume 10 trips per unit or per lot. So in this particular case with 54 lots, they'd actually be at 540. Applicant has requested a variation from the council to allow for 54 lots in lieu of 50 lots along this dead-end street. Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended approval of that variation, as well as approval of the preliminary plat as a whole as well. Happy to go into further detail, answer any questions, and we do have a rep of the applicant should there be questions there as well.
Council have questions for Clayton?
I do. Clayton, you said the road, the Mongoose Court, which is a great name, is 29 feet wide. Does that mean there is parking on one side or not?
Yeah, per our parking regulations, parking would be restricted to the west side, so no parking on the east side.
Would there actually be parking, considering these are twin homes and they are quite tight together? And I'm not real familiar with housing type, but twin homes to me is 2 homes sharing 1 wall.
Yes.
So they're like 25 and 26 is going to be 2 homes sharing a wall. Then there's going to be I'm hoping, green space between 24 and 23. Is that sort of correct?
Well, you'd have a 25, 26 would be built, and then there'd be space between 24, 25.
Right.
Then 23, 24 would be one
Yep,
space.
right. So, so you have driveways though for each twin home, right?
Yeah, and whether on-street parking is going to be practical is ultimately going to come down to the placement of where those driveways
Right.
are.
Probably not a whole lot of space in between these these little strips for a car, you know, so. Have we got another development similar to this in Johnston?
We do, and that's what
Yeah.
I was ahead of you there.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm a little concerned about this. One person has a party and invites over 20 people and there is no place to park.
So this is 50th Street, 59th Avenue, you got the Sikh Temple.
Oh, yeah.
These lots are actually a little narrower than what they have they're proposing. As you can see, there'd probably be space for one car.
Yeah, and you've got to, you know, in this case, there's only these twin homes on the right side, the east side of the street. The west side of the street are single-family homes, which have more space.
I think we're another good example. I'm going to look back. Oh, here's probably another. They're lining the driveways up.
Well, and parking would only be allowed on one side of that. So there's a bit of parking. But would you say that the width of these lots, these twin homes, is this really similar to what we're gonna get here? Because it doesn't look too bad. I've been on that street.
About
It's
what,
like 45.
41 maybe. So this is pretty comparable.
Okay.
They're showing 41-foot width per lot. So what that be 82 per building? This is equivalent.
Okay. All right. Well, you've answered all my questions on that. My other set of questions is going to be the planting plan doesn't work. It lists black walnut under the understory tree list. I don't know. Black walnut shouldn't be planted in anybody's backyard or front yard, unless you don't mind being hit in the head with big old walnuts. And it'll overgrow the space that they have. They haven't planted along the bike trail, so not good. If the representative is here, I would highly, highly, highly recommend you talk to a landscape architect or nursery and get a different plant than black walnuts. None of your homeowners will like that.
And we can, those details will be flushed out with the construction plans,
Sure.
which would come back to the council. So we can certainly coordinate with the developer in the interim.
Thank you. I have no more questions.
Council, any other questions? Councilman Cope, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just have a question to Clayton. I was surprised by your comment there about construction plans coming back to the council. Wouldn't construction plans typically not come back to the council?
Public improvement construction plans always come to the council. Those are typically on your consent agenda.
Okay, all right, great, thanks. I appreciate the clarification.
Yes.
Any other questions, council? If not, do we have a motion to approve resolution number 24-263?
I move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second discussion. Nicole, vote please.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Burkhart,
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Cope,
Yes,
Evans,
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7E, consider resolution number 24-264, approving the site plan for the suites located at 5804 North Glen Drive, PZ case 2427. Jacob.
So this was brought to us by Jason, I'm going to get this last name wrong, Consignew. He submitted a site plan for construction of a 5,241 square foot building consisting of 26 individual suites, ranging from 100 square feet to 180 square feet in size. The comprehensive plan has this subject property as future land use for commercial, and as proposed, the development is in compliance with that, the comprehensive plan. The subject property is part of the Johnston Commons PUD, and the bulk regulations for this property is there's a minimum lot area of 20,000 square feet. The north setback is 10 feet. The south setback is also 10 feet, with the east setback being 30 and the west setback being 35. As proposed, the site is in compliance with all of those bulk regulations. There are 4 existing trees to be removed, mainly because they are currently grown around the detention basin, so they'll be removed to ensure compliance that detention basin functions properly. The open space landscaping for this area is 25% is the required. The lot area is 30,000 square feet, and they're proposing about a little over 40% would be open space. The open space landscaping is required to be provided at a rate of 1 tree and 1 shrub for every 1,000 square feet. So for this site, it'd be equate to 10 trees and 10 shrubs. They're proposing 15 trees and 40 shrubs. Morway Road is designated a collector or arterial road, so street trees are required at 1 street tree for every 50 linear feet of street frontage. They are providing us with those 3 street trees, and they are in compliance. On the south side of the property, there is there's a 7.5 foot landscape buffer required. Those required plantings are 3 evergreens or overstory trees, 3 understory trees, and 5 shrubs. And as shown, I'll pull it down here for you. As shown, they are meeting those requirements as well. There will be pedestrian connection crossway to Morway Road, and then the off-street parking, there's 1 parking space for every 300 square feet. That equates to 18 parking spaces being required, including 2 ADA spaces. They are proposing 32 spaces, including those 32 ADAs. There is 5% of the parking spaces shall be electric vehicle charger ready. This equates to 1 spot, which they do have prepared. They meet their bicycle parking requirements, which is 1 bicycle rack for at least two bikes, which they meet. And then the building will be properly have proper fire hydrant coverage and fire coverage. It's not in a floodplain. And then the architecture standards for this are 50% Class A, no more than 50% Class B, and then no more than 15% Class C. As proposed, they are all Class A. A lot of that is due to that hardy plank stucco with that rain screen assembly. If you don't know what a rain screen assembly is, basically is keeping water. The intention is to manage water from the outside, whereas the vapor barrier that we're all common with kind of keeps vapor inside of the house. So rain screen assembly focuses on water on the outside, whereas that vapor barrier works on moisture from the inside of the house. As proposed, the architecture meets all of our code requirements. And then there were some comments from the Community Development Department, Public Works, and FOAF, and those have been all addressed as well. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval with the condition that those comments be addressed. I can answer any questions, and I believe we have the member from the project on the Zoom call.
Council have any questions?
Can you explain again how many units are in the building?
There will be here. I'll pull this in for you. There are going to be 26 units, 26 individual suites in that building. They're all going to range from size from the smallest being 100 square feet to the largest being 180 square feet.
And these are meant to be individually sold, I read, and owner occupied, whatever. And they're running businesses out of these individual suites. And the intention is there could be visitors, correct?
Yes, from discussions, the intentions are, think, hair salons, people who have a home office but don't want to work at home. They want a small office, but they can't afford, large office spaces that we normally see. So they are, I think, your local CPA or along those lines. So yes, there could be visitors. The belief is that it's not going to be a high retail place where there's going to be people constantly coming and going.
Okay, so there's 26 units, some of which would have a visitor occasionally. And how many parking stalls are being provided?
32.
And what happens so our standards are saying that's enough for a facility like this?
Yes, they do meet all of our parking requirements as outlined in our code.
I saw in there was a suggestion that come and go should be, there should be some sort of discussions with come and go regarding if there's not enough parking. I don't even know what the discussion could be. I don't know. It seems like it's a new idea. And then I'm also interested in, there's these existing homes to the west. Is there any screening of this commercial building for those homes?
There is not in the PUD. It outlines that there's no buffering for that, which is why it's not addressed in the staff report. So the PUD outlines a lot of those requirements.
But is there an existing fence? I thought I saw that on one of these plans or on the existing aerial. It looks like there's a fence.
You are correct on that, my memory.
So I didn't see anything that says the fence is going away, so hopefully the fence for those people can stay. Okay, I may have more questions. Thank you.
Other questions, council?
Quickly, these are individual office suites.
Yeah.
And in enclosed building, right?
Yes.
It's not open space, not like a strip mall, anything like that.
No, to my understanding, they'll all be individual suites with their own doors and entrance, like their own
Okay,
thing.
everything is
29
indoors.
offices in a building.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thanks.
Other questions, council?
Mayor,
Councilman Coe?
I have a question. Yeah, thank you. As I understand it, Jacob, this isn't a C2, or the PUD is treated like basically uses that are allowed in a C2 zone. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So basically, any use in these suites would have to be consistent with a C2 use?
Yes, I would have to look at the PUD. If I don't remember if anything is specifically outlined as not being permitted in this zone, this property, but yes, that would be correct.
Yeah, because it would be helpful. I mean, I think we're talking about, I seem to recall a reference in the title to the building of nail and hair suites of some sort. So it's kind of an indication that that would be the primary uses. And so that's where I'm not sure on the parking calculation, because to me, it would seem like to me, if you're going to have that many suites, you would have to have more parking if the suites are designed primarily for a retail use. So that's where I'm surprised that the parking requirement is as minimal as it is.
We've looked through the code, through a couple what we would view as similar items, and the requirement would only gain 1 or 2 required parking spaces. It wouldn't change what they're proposing, so they would still be meeting our our parking requirements, even if we changed it to a more restrictive use that would apply to this.
So what drives the calculation of 32 parking spots? Is it the size of the building? I mean, or is it the number of units, the
Yeah,
number of
so we're-
retail?
Yeah, so the required parking is one space for every 300 square feet of that building. So we took 52, 41, we just divided that by 30, and we got 18. So the requirement is not 32, the requirement would be 18. They're just proposing 32 parking spaces for you. So we're getting that additional 14 parking spaces, almost double what's required.
So the number of, but obviously the 300 calculation is not based on the number of units in the building, right? Because the number of units is 26, is that right?
Correct. It's based off the square footage of the building itself, not the amount of units that are in the building.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, the units, because the units are quite small, to me, I think that's where I'm not sure the calculation, and I understand that they're over, in essence, they're over parking by the city requirement. They're doing 32 as opposed to 18, but I still am concerned whether 32 is sufficient. My other question goes to kind of the architectural requirements of the building. And we had sort of a discussion about this. This building, so that page you have up there, that's perfect. So the east frontage of that building faces Merle Hay Road. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so previously we had any commercial retail type building that was located along Merle Hay Road, 86th Street, prior to, I think, not too long ago, we had a architectural requirement that at least 50% of the building had to be brick. And we no longer have that requirement, but I think that one of the reasons we eliminated that requirement, but the requirement was not eliminated because we felt that we should lower the standard on commercial retail type buildings that are located along Merle Hay or 86th Street or other commercial corridors. I think the primary requirement was, the reason we made that change is that we were seeing new buildings being proposed that were proposing materials that were equivalent to brick and really kind of a rough comparison to that. And my concern here is that I just don't know whether we should consider that hardy plank to be, in essence, a rough equivalent to brick. And so I have some concerns that this building as designed is kind of a step backwards from an architectural standards standpoint. And I'm really hesitant to move forward with it as it under its current design. We had I think a really healthy discussion earlier on a different item about architectural standards and building materials, and that's something we really value in our community. And I think we've really done a very good job, and we've had really good, high quality new construction, both under the previous architectural standard and under the current one. And I'm just really concerned that this is a step backwards. So I have some real anxiety about supporting the building as designed, as we have it in front of us tonight, and would be interested in potentially considering if other council members also want to support the idea of potentially tabling this item and maybe asking the developer to go back to the drawing board and come back with something that I think is more consistent with what we typically see. And if the designer comes back and is able to highlight why that design is not necessary, or I'm certainly willing to engage in a conversation with them and take an open-minded approach to it. But my initial reaction to this is not warm. And that was probably more of a comment than a question, so don't feel obligated to respond, Jacob.
We do have the applicant, I guess, online. Councilman Cope, do you want to hear what he has to say about?
Sure. Yes,
he's
I would welcome
proposing?
that. Yes, I would. Sure, absolutely, of course.
Hey guys, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for allowing me a chance to speak, and apologize I couldn't be there in person this evening. I live in the Quad Cities, and my partner locally, Chris Ranello, who attended the meeting last week, he had plans this evening, unfortunately, so glad we could still connect over Zoom. I guess speaking to the class of material that's being used around the exterior facade, I know my design professional and myself work very closely with the city to make sure that we were hitting the Class A material that we used on the exterior of the property. And my architect did find this hardy plank that we're installing everywhere, and it does meet, according to my knowledge and his knowledge, the Class A requirement as it's listed by the code. So I guess I'm not sure, the comment with the brick, and I understand it sounds like there were some changes maybe proposed or made recently, but I know that my architect and I spent a lot of time researching different products that would meet the requirements of a Class A material that's used on the exterior of the property to meet that requirement of being greater than 50%. And that was one of the materials that we found during our research.
Mayor, is it okay if I ask a question? Sure. Is it Jason? Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Hi, Councilwoman Martin. I have a home that has hardy plank on the outside of it, and I know the product somewhat. Again, I'm not an architect. But I would validate all of the comments Councilman Cope said about the appearance of this building, especially from the Merle Hay Road. I'm very protective of Merle Hay Road. It's a main corridor. It's our main street. We have a street revitalization project coming up for Merle Hay Road. We're very proud of this. Our city hall is on this road. So I agree with Councilman Cope in that the line drawings that were showed leave us concerned, or at least I'll take that back, leaves me concerned that the building is not going to reflect the importance of Merle Hay Road and what we're trying to do with that. Now, I think your idea is a great one in terms of providing these small office spaces for for people to have a home office that's not in their home. 100%. I have my doubts about the parking, but I'm going to let that go. But I think you can use hardy plank, but you can also do a little bit of extra with the facade. You can put trim around the windows. You can put trim around the door. You can put some extra, I'm going to call it molding, and that's probably not correct, under the roof line. There are things that could be done specifically with that front east side to put some more interest, texture. Maybe you have a color scheme. You could do a lot of things. You can get hardy plank with, it can look like it's scallops. It can look like cedar shake. Anyway, if a little bit of more inspiration from your architect would go into that front facade, I'd be more inclined to support it. But right now, I'm inclined to agree with Councilman Cope that it's not quite what we want. Thank you.
Am I okay to respond to the comments?
Certainly.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the feedback, and I'm developing for these and other markets as well, and so I think most of the cities where we're developing these, I mean, most of the council members in the cities that we're doing these in will vouch for our team that, we definitely want to work alongside the cities, and it's important to us that we're, putting up something that reflects well upon the city. So I understand the concerns entirely. I guess from the developer side, and it kind of tying back to the comments that were made earlier with regards to the door and the 79% of material and the classes that needed to be made there. it sounds like we're meeting the requirements per code. And so is it just personal preference of wanting to have a different exterior facade? And is it our responsibility to do that as a developer, or do we just have to meet code? I guess I'm confused because while I understand, I believe it was Tom and another council member's message, and again, I'm sorry I'm not in person, so I'm not putting a name with a face. I could also say on the other side that other folks may like the look of the board that we're providing, and aesthetically, they may find it pleasing.
Well, we can ask other council members what they think, but I think what you're hearing from at least two of the council members that have spoken so far is that, the diagram that has been presented to us tonight looks pretty plain and pretty basic and doesn't suggest any kind of character to the building at all. And I think what you're hearing is that we'd like to see something that's more exciting, particularly given the location of where this building is going to be in our community.
So I think I understand now. And so you're right, actually, like the rendering or the picture that's there probably doesn't do a good job showcasing the color schemes. And so the bottom of the building will be wrapped in white stone wainscoting. And then it'll really contrast well with the black hardy plank around the rest of the building. The windows will all be wrapped in white. The awning will be white, and then the suites will be in white as well. And so with that black background of the hardy plank, all the white really pops along the front, and that's kind of the goal and how all of our locations are designed. It's really kind of consistent throughout all the developments that we're doing. I have a rendering. The building is up now in Peoria, Illinois, and it's the exact same structure with the same layout as well, only the materials that we're using on this development is actually at a higher standard because we did post frame metal siding in Peoria. That was fine with them out there, which again, happy to do the Class A material here on this structure to meet the code requirements.
Is there a deadline, Jason, this is Councilwoman Martin again, is there a deadline to, an urgency to this being voted on and passed tonight?
I think the biggest thing that my partner and I are hopeful for would be to get a lot of the site prep work done and to get a foundation put in. We're not looking to go vertical before the winter season, but we do have a site prep contractor and a concrete contractor that's ready and believes that they can fit this in. So that when the weather breaks next year, we can go vertical right away and not have to worry about site preparation and digging a foundation.
Councilman Cope, did you have something more?
Well, I think, Mayor, you did a nice job, and as did Council Member Martin, of kind of describing kind of the issue. And I think, Jason, you're right. You meet the requirements. But I think the challenge for us as council members sometimes is that we develop these codes and in kind of in an abstract kind of way, and then you get a proposal that actually sort of implements it, and you say, oh, I'm not sure that's exactly what I had in mind when I approved that code. And so as a developer, that probably makes you kind of frustrated, and understandably. But at the same time, you're going to build this building, and it's going to be on our main street in Johnston, Iowa, for a long, long time, right? So it's, from our standpoint, it's really important that we get it done right the first time. And so I think our objective here is to say, can we have an opportunity, this, from a council standpoint, this is really our first time tonight looking at this and the design, and we didn't have an opportunity to see, renderings or pictures of your other buildings that you had. And so this discussion's been helpful to kind of get a better understanding of it. My preference would be, I think we have sort of two options. One would be either to table it and further kind of fine tune the drawings, or the other option would be if you're really under if you feel like you need to get approval at this meeting tonight so that you can move forward with your below ground work, I would be open to approving it with the understanding that we would have further discussions to fine tune the architectural work between now and construction plans being submitted to the city.
And I'm completely okay with that. Like I'm happy to work with the city on the design and to provide some renderings that we've done. I'm definitely not trying to be combative, if that's the right word here at all. Like I genuinely want to build something that, people are excited about. And to everyone's point, I know Merle Hay is a really important road in the city there, and I want to make sure that, it's something that is very aesthetically pleasing when driving by, and the frontage represents that very much so. So I'm on board with that.
Other council member discussion, questions, comments?
Mayor, does this come to a vote for 3 times or one and done?
Once.
One and done. Mayor, I think Councilman Cope's suggestion that I kind of agree. Jason, here at the City of Johnston, we try and work with our developers 100%. And if you're willing, I would be willing to vote for passage of your proposal, again, as Councilman Cope outlined, with the understanding that there was still some questions about that front facade. If you can provide us with an illustration, an as-built pictures, maybe even your color, send us some photos of the color samples, that would help assure myself that we're going to have a quality project, and that together we'll have a quality project.
I'd be very happy to do that. And it's funny, I'm even noticing right now that there's not a photo in the picture that we're all looking at. We have a really big truss that we're putting at the top of the gable. It's a really nice wood accent that's stained right in the top corner, and it's not listed there on the rendering that we're looking at too. And so I'm pretty confident once we kind of demonstrate and show you guys a color version of what the frontage looks like, it does really pop and does look very nice aesthetically. So I understand the concerns in looking at it right here, totally understand. And if we have to work on a couple things, we'd be happy to take a look at that too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move forward. Motion to move it ahead for vote.
Do we need to include a condition that the developer continue to work with us on what the...
And Mayor and Council, if I could interject, I guess just for clarity, just because I want to bring this back correctly, is the ask, or I guess the expectations are, we're essentially approving the site development work, but we'll bring final kind of architectural elevations and material types back to a future council meeting for approval. Is that what I'm hearing the request is?
Can we split it up that way?
You can, yes, I believe you can.
Yeah. So my motion would be that we move approval forward for the site plan, and that we continue to have further discussions with the developer on the facade of the building.
Jason, do you have any comments on that?
I understand the idea to want to break it up into 2. Of course, I would prefer, being the developer, that it would kind of be all wrapped up here tonight, but I understand the concern. So I don't really have much to comment on it, I guess.
Is that your motion then, Rhonda?
It is.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Nicole, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart,
Yes.
Ready,
Oh, yes, sorry.
Pope,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Motion passed. Thank you, Jason, for working with us on this. It's an important facility on our main street in Johnston. So
Totally understand. Totally understand. I'm happy to be helpful here, and we're excited to be developing on that lot there.
Thank you.
Guys.
Moving on to item 7F, consider approval of claims in the amount of $1,003,333.57.
I move.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion? Nicole, vote please.
Councilmember Reddy,
Yes.
Cope,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Burkhart.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to city administrator comments.
Other than I'm thankful for the rain we've been receiving the last couple of days, which is much needed. I don't personally have any updates, but I'm going to turn it over to Matt.
Just to give a quick update on a couple of projects. First, we'll start out with a 100th Street project. We've got all of our work complete in phase 1 and 2. With the exception of our school speed warning flashing beacons, they are up, installed, but the contractor is waiting on some parts to get those functional. In phase 3, all of our storm sewer pipe was installed late last week. We did get the subgrade and main line trimmed and paved last week. We paved on Thursday and Friday, so our main line is connected. We do have turn lanes, driveways, and sidewalks and trails to pour just yet. Learned today that the contractor will be running a day crew and a night crew. So the day crew will be operating from essentially 7 to 5, and the night crew will be from 4 to 10. They're going to set steel, form up, and then pour. And they'll just kind of continue to do that over the next 2 weeks as weather permits. They're thinking they'll have that completed in about 2 weeks. Trail and sidewalk work and driveway will be kind of going on at that same time. With that, then surface restoration would follow. So hopefully here in about 3 to 4 weeks, we'll have an open road, but we'll know more here in a couple of weeks, and I'll give an update at our next council meeting on when we expect that to be open. The next update is the overhead to underground Merle Hay Road electric power. So with the original completion date on that conversion on our Johnston Drive and Merle Hay Road project was really mid to late summer. That got delayed due to the flooding in northwest Iowa. They pulled crews up to go up there and work that disaster. The second completion date, which just passed, it was really scheduled for the end of October. Crews got pulled away for storm restoration down south for the hurricanes. Right now, Mid-American is telling me that their completion date is 11/22, with the weather permitting on that. I know that they've had the stretch tore up for quite a while. We've got some trail that are missing. They have put rock in so that folks can traverse the area. This will also include the restoration of trail in the area too by the end of the month. So want to state one thing. They do plan to take down the wires when they go underground. However, if you notice, the street lights are on those wood poles. So they still have to get the new street lights in before they can take those poles down. So you'll see slowly those things disappear, but we'll need to keep those poles with the street lights on them until we can get the new poles in. I don't have a schedule for that. I did ask about that today, and once they get back to me, I'll provide you an update on when they expect the new street lights to be installed so that we can get the whole area cleared up. That's all I've got. Any questions?
Matt, before you wander away, just because it's in general vicinity, that led me to wonder, where do we stand with regard to the very large water mains just south of there that Des Moines Water Works? Is that wrapping up? When will that wrap up? Is it ever?
Not till next year. The contractor is having difficulties with their pipe supplier. So they've got all the work connected there on the west side of the bridge. They've got a lot of pipe installed to the east, not quite all the way to the bike trail. We had a meeting out there today about the connection of the bike trail. The Des Moines Water Works subcontractor is actually going to pour our section of the Beaver Creek Bank Stabilization Project all the way to about 500 feet short of the interurban trail. And then that last 500 feet, they will rock that. They plan on pulling out their equipment here for pretty much most of November. They'll probably be back after Thanksgiving. Once they get some pipe, if they can get that in and the weather permits, we'll push for them to make that connection with the bike trail, but that's currently where they're at right now.
Great, thank you.
Any other staff comments?
Chief McDaniel.
Just a quick update for the council. If you are asked by constituents with election day tomorrow, for general awareness, we do a full-on staffing plan, and we will have additional members on the department patrolling throughout the hours. We have 8 precincts and 6 different polling locations throughout the city. So won't get into any specifics, but we work with state and federal partners on an ongoing and active basis for threat and intelligence monitoring. And there will be additional officers teamed up for quick reaction teams should any problems or concerns come forward at any of our polling locations tomorrow.
Anything else, staff? If not, Councilmember Coe?
What was that about?
Do you have any comments to share? This is council comments.
Oh, okay. I was just okay. Sorry about that. I saw Councilman Evans laughing all of a sudden.
I know. Because I was looking at him and I said, Councilmember Cope.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry.
And
All
I
right.
thought, well,
Sorry.
I
about
couldn't
that.
help but laugh.
Okay.
I see you.
Well, okay, 2 things. One, I wanted to echo the mayor's comments about the work on the Granger annexation. That was certainly a challenging issue, and really appreciate the work that the staff and the mayor. I know you participated in several meetings with the folks up there. I'm glad that came to fruition, and I think that's a good outcome. Second of all, I want to thank our communication staff, Janet specifically. She's shown a lot of leadership in helping get a survey out that we're participating in, and you maybe have seen other communities are doing kind of post Halloween to kind of get a sense from folks about preference for whether Halloween should occur on the traditional night before Halloween, actual Halloween, or on a Saturday before Halloween, in an effort to try to make it a little bit more family friendly. And so you may have probably seen that several other cities are also doing similar surveys. And I know Janet worked with other communication staff across the metro to kind of help get the ball rolling on that. So I wanted to thank her for that. And that'll be a survey that'll be going out to residents here in Johnston as well, post Halloween. So just kind of wanted to highlight that too. Thank you.
Councilman Evans.
I wanted to go back to earlier on when we were trying to clarify greater than, equal to, less than. So now that we've talked about that, are we going to do anything? Are we going to review that? Are we going to fix it? Or are we just going to forget about it? Does it make any sense? Probably not.
I think some additional conversation is in order. I don't know if that's for an ad hoc committee to take a look at.
Yeah, I mean, certainly sending it to an ad hoc committee would be appropriate. I mean, I think the ordinance, interesting enough, we just adopted the ordinance before we approved the site plan. Obviously staff never wants to be at odds with policymakers on a direction on a specific item. Certainly we had an interpretation. We would not have proceeded with a site plan that was contrary to an interpretation we were making on a ordinance we were just approving. So certainly, clearly, apologize, we have this disconnect. But, certainly if we need to make some changes to that, we're certainly doing it. I think, the intent was, anytime there's an elevational change and we're changing the class of material, it certainly makes sense that we want to move it towards compliance. I think the ultimate question that we were facing with this specific issue is in the PUD, do we require the applicant to bring the entirety of the site up to compliance on day one? And that seemed pretty extreme in this case. And certainly that's why the ordinance was drafted the way it was. But the idea is over time, we can bring it to compliance. Now, I think the question for the policymakers would be, and I think ad hoc starting there is the right direction, is is it greater or equal to, obviously it's not less than, we know that. So I think certainly we just need direction.
We need more discussion. Yeah.
But we can schedule that.
And would it make a difference on what side of the building? I mean, if it was the side of the building facing the parking lot and we were cutting in one door, there again, would that make a difference rather than it being the back of the building? And
I mean, obviously, every site is unique, but I think certainly you're trying to write a code to apply to all scenarios. And I think if you try to write a code that is trying to address every single nuance, you're going to get a code that's really not manageable. And again, I think what is the intent? And certainly you can start parsing out those different elevational sites. But again, you have I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but you have a site that you have an elevation that clearly doesn't meet the current code requirements. No fault of the applicant, and actually no fault of even the previous property owner when they painted the whole building, because that was permissible. But now our current code, with that being painted service, my understanding is it doesn't meet the requirements. I'm looking at Clayton to affirm what I just said. So yes, I got it right. So the question is then, how do you bring a painted surface that you really can't unpaint up to current code compliance? And that's kind of the difficulty here. Now, certainly, if they, like Councilmember Martin suggested, if they would have taken one door panel out and put in glass, for example, that is a Class A material that would have actually then brought it up to more in compliance. I think to your point, I think the issue becomes, you have a back of a building, it's not secure, it's already an area that could be subject to vandalism. Do you want to introduce an element like that that's going to cause vandalism? Those are hard discussion items, right? But there's always a way around it. So we'll schedule for an ad hoc committee. I'm looking at staff to work at scheduling it for an ad hoc committee.
thank you.
Anything else, Councilman Evans? Councilman Reddy?
A pass.
Councilman Burkhart?
Thanks. I want to start by congratulating our high school runners, both boys and girls, who performed outstandingly at state cross country this last Friday. I want to wish our football team the utmost success as they take on Valley this next Friday. I'm looking forward to our next meeting where we get to celebrate with the boys golf team. I'm thankful to the mayor for extending that invitation. We have a lot of good things going on in this community, and I also want to give a great shout out to fellow council members who want to make sure that we continue to have good things in this community along that main corridor of Merle Hay Road. I voted in favor of moving this development forward and that site plan for the suites, largely because the developer did follow all of our ordinances, unlike another instance tonight that didn't. But with that being said, I think that specific type of development also needs to be visited by our Economic Development Ad Hoc Committee or something as we discuss some of the purposes and principles, not only behind Merle Hay Road again, but also even a facility like that, because I know there was echoed a couple of different times with regard to parking. And that is one that they're following the ordinance, but it doesn't necessarily make sense and jive with what we all are at least led to believe may be in there. So I look forward to economic development or somebody else taking that on to see if that is a specific type of usage for commercial properties that we need to be able to consider to address those parking issues. So I thank you all very much, and I wish you all a safe and happy election day tomorrow. And certainly I am so very thankful to live in this country and be able to exercise our freedoms.
Councilman Martin?
I Ditto on the safe election day. Some of you guys might have noticed my car in the parking lot, and I keep getting teased about what I have in the back window. I have never, ever gotten any comment about that on the interstate driving the Ames or back. So when I hear people are concerned that we're gonna have some trouble in Iowa, I have a hard time believing that, but I appreciate being prepared. Anyway, happy voting.
So are we set up for Election Day?
Partially.
Partially? You still working on it? But you'll be ready.
As soon as the meeting is over,
So get out of here.
We're happy to go.
Well, anything else come before the council tonight? If not, we are adjourned.
Appreciate your support. I also appreciate
They could have.